he will soon throw all those dishes onto the floor. 2008, another African-American production, this time Cat on the Hot Tin Roof. A lot of these are well-known actors. A lot of these are attended by the African-American community. They were extremely successful. But in this case, this is James Earl Jones, the great James Earl Jones. We are asked to believe that in 1950 Mississippi, there were very wealthy African-American plantation owners, which is what Big Daddy is here. The whole play is about the distribution of his wealth after he dies. So I don't see this as very innovative theater. It's less experimental than an attempt to draw a now fairly large African-American middle class to the Broadway stage. And it was successful that way. Financially, both these productions did extremely well. A little bit of sex thrown in as well, a little bit of rage as well. In England, the production I liked more took it out of New Orleans in 1948, made it a very modern set, and made more sense intellectually. This is on Peter Hall's productions. We can skip that for the sense of time. But the productions that interest me a great deal are what's been done in Italy. And this is from 1991, Festival Due Monde in Spoleto, where you had a new translation, not the translation from post-World War II, directed by De Capitani, who's perhaps best known for Elfo Puccini, the Teatro Elfo Puccini here, and was one of the young, bright young directors. He's not so young anymore, but was one of the bright young directors of Milano these days. And that production had a certain originality. It was not an attempt to recreate New Orleans in 1947, and has some of the stage directions associated with it, but it's a huge open stage rather than a constricted stage in a new, up-to-date translation of the work. And this is some of the imagery from it. Vast, open. And I think if we look at Tennessee Williams' original set, it's not often done this way, but it represents indoors and outdoors at the same time. The set is open so that you have the Kowalski's kitchen, but also the street as well. And another from that production. More recently, this is a production by Antonio Latella from Modena in 2012, and this is one that was at the Piccolo in 2013. It was a very exciting production because it was a total translation of Tennessee Williams' work. It was, we might go so far to say that it was an adaptation of the work here. And the set was unusual because it contained three very different sets all at once, all combined. Set one was the Kowalski apartment. Set two was a movie set where the action was being filmed for the cinema. Set three was a mental hospital where Blanche Dubois winds up at the end of the play. So you had this layered set, a little crowded, not open like the Spoleto production, but it allowed for 3 stories to be told at the same time. That's a quick look at the set, the emphasis. Now, one problem with the streetcar named Desire is always, how do we deal with the image of Marlon Brando? Marlon Brando so dominated that work. Almost every review, the actor playing Stanley Kowalski is compared to Marlon Brando. You can read review after review that says, yes, the production was okay, but it's not Marlon Brando, you know. Well, here we take on that image first thing. During the production, you wear the Marlon Brando t-shirt. We know about Marlon Brando. This is something different. Now, this is a pregnant Stella. Quanti minuti? 5. Okay. This is Stella. Now, part of the controversial features of this play is whether or not Stanley Kowalski, while his wife is in hospital giving birth to their first child, rapes his sister-in-law in the house. Whether or not there's a rape or not, there's a lot of debate. In this production, however, Blanche Dubois seems to be a seductress, a willing participant in the sexuality at the end of the play. Here she takes a superior position, which doesn't exactly suggest that she's being forced here. And of course, the play ends with a very different ending. Not Blanche Dubois going off to the asylum with her famous line, I've always depended on the kindness of strangers. But here, either seducing or being seduced by the doctor in the mental institution, which suggests that she is sexually promiscuous rather than an innocent victim. But we could debate that ending a good deal, but at least it's a very strong interpretation that makes a certain amount of sense here. Now this is De Capitani again with L'estate scorsa, and his version of the play, which was done at Elfo Puccini here, and to my mind, I will get to compare the French production tonight with this one. But I see this one as an interesting transition between the Williams we know and the Williams we don't, because this outdoor scene is both attached to a very great house in New Orleans. You can ride by it today on a tram, just like the one we saw at the beginning. That one tram runs right by this house, but the backyard is a jungle. It's completely primitive, complete with flesh-eating vegetation, flesh-eating carnivorous plants there. So they are on the margins of civilization and primitive life. I don't know how that's going to be depicted tonight, but it will be interesting for me to see. More images from that production. I'll skip over that. The film, again, fabulously popular and made a star, this time out of Elizabeth Taylor. I can't overestimate the amount of talent that's drawn to this. Katharine Hepburn, Mrs. Venables. And that's an image from tonight's production. So we'll see. It has some maybe colorblind casting, some racial element to it. The jungle is very dense. I don't know what the music will be like, but we will see tonight. This is a production in Paris during the centenary year of William's birth, 2011, by an American director. There's the Streetcar Named Desire, but the influence was very Japanese here. Again, part of my theme is that every production is translation. And here, Streetcar Named Desire gets translated into a Japanese model. You know, it was very popular at the Comédie Française. I think this was the first American production ever done at the Comédie Française. Now, if we had more time, and let me urge you to explore what I consider late Tennessee Williams that's not done very much anymore, Tennessee Williams after the 1960s. We have looked at Tennessee Williams after World War I, but Tennessee Williams after 1968, when theater goes crazy. We have the rock musical Hair at that time. We have O Calcutta at that time. So the nude musical review seems to have passed Tennessee Williams by. I would argue, however, that plays like this, the two-character play, which I think he wrote after seeing Beckett's Waiting for Godot. Just a few quick images of a revival in New York. Where the theater itself becomes the subject of the theatrical evening. There's a lot more I can say about this, except I want to highlight that there is the Tennessee Williams we all know or think we know, and there's another Tennessee Williams that needs to be explored even in Europe. And that is the two-character play, the bar of a Tokyo hotel, any number of late short plays that were rejected on Broadway because they were not Tennessee Williams, or not people's expectations of Tennessee Williams. So, my word today is explore more Tennessee Williams, particularly the later, lesser-known works, and thank you for your attention. And
many thanks, Stan. Many thanks, Stan, for this rich exposition. Performance is translation, yes, all over the world and a big horizon. Siamo un po' in ritardo, allora direi, se siete d'accordo, riprendiamo i lavori per le 15, proprio puntualissimi, e adesso le persone che verranno